anybody who knows you knows how dear Oxford and Magdalen are to your heart. So how did you get in the first place? I mean, we all know how we've ended up places, but do you have memories of how you auditioned, how you got there?
God, yes, by sheer luck. I mean, you have to be brainy to get into Oxford. I certainly wasn't that. And in those days, choral scholarships were a sort of way in, just the same as, being good at drama or good at rugby or rowing.
Yeah.
And Edred Wright, who was my director of music at King's, there had been numerous choral scholars that he'd had through his students, and he said, right, you should go for a choral scholarship at Oxbridge. So I go up, and I went to Cambridge first for my trials, then I went to Oxford. For some reason, I wanted to go to Oxford. All my friends had gone to Cambridge, and I was trying to work out why this was, and I think it partly was the fact that I didn't sort of want to live in their shadow anymore, and I sort of needed to be myself. So Magdalen was the answer. I went up to read classics. Now I know that might come as a surprise to most people, but that's the only thing I could read. Those are my A levels. I was rubbish at it, but I had this fantastic tutor, Ollie Tuplin, who basically started. We were his first intake at Magdalen, and there were 7 of us, and he was just brilliant. He got me through moderations in classics. It was after 2 years. I've never worked so hard in my life, but I was also in the choir, and I changed to music after 2 years. Bernard Rose was the organist and choir master with this wonderful name, Informata Choristarum. The present day one, of course, is Mark Williams, our good friend. But I sang in the choir, and it was just amazing. I mean, this, first time away from home, I mean, all hell broke loose, really. I just had a lovely time.
Made you survive.
Yes.
And obviously with that, you've got your 6-day week, your even songs, you've got quite sort of formulaic ways of singing, haven't you? I mean, I'm a Clare chorister, so I remember those days very well. And yet this chance to explore new repertoire. Do you feel that you were challenged? Was this a whole new discovery for you? Oh,
my goodness me, yes. I mean, being a chorister at Canterbury, yes, we had new music every day, but we had a lot of rehearsal for it, comparatively. Magdalen, it was up to us to look at the music. Bernard Rose, Bernard would always put down. He had this thing about doing sort of eras. So if it was Tompkins, you'd have a whole service of Tompkins. If it was Leighton, you'd have a whole service of Leighton, etc. And so and again, new music every day, and having to do it correctly.
Yeah.
It was a small chapel, very intimate chapel.
So in those many even songs that you sang and all the other choral activities you had going on at the time, was there any repertoire that really stood out for you?
Well, I mean, of course, this is where I came to know the Renaissance music so much. But actually, it wasn't anything at Magdalen. It was something at Christ Church. Simon Preston was at Christ Church, Oxford at the time, and he released an album of Stravinsky, Symphony of Psalms, and I remember hearing that, buying that LP, listening to it the first time with the likes of Franz Steele, who was a choral scholar at the time, also member of the 16 later, and it was in the organ scholars' room. We'd been out for a few pints on a Friday evening, came back, listened to this, and it was amazing. I thought, wow, why have I never heard this piece before? And I remember saying to Fran, one day I'm going to record that, and I did. Boys, there were, I think, a dozen choristers, but then there were 12 academical clerks, we were called. It was a little, maybe a little less of the academical accountants, but we were, you're suddenly thrown into that community and you make friends for life. And out of my, the 5 or 6 of us that went up, and one's a high Supreme Court judge today, another's a top political analyst, etc. And it's amazing.
You're all game changers.
Oh, of course.
But also, I suppose that's the way of creating that community, which you then went on to begin when you founded the 16. How much do you think Magdalen in particular affected your way of gathering people, if you like, of networking and understanding who's good at what?
I think, the one thing I think I really did learn at Magdalen was to think for yourself. And that was what Bernard Rose and my other tutor, David Woolston, would always say, they weren't interested in people just copying out reams from a textbook or copying somebody other interpretation. You know, just think for yourself. But also that, as I say, the camaraderie that is created there, and of these fantastic colleagues, and also mixing not just from people at Magdalen, but people who are at other colleges, New College, Christ Church, and that whole sort of mix of music that you got at Oxford allowed us as sort of students to just put on things ourselves. So I sang things I should never have sung at all. I was not capable of singing, and I performed things that really, I didn't really know what I was doing. But I had good teachers.
And I think it all comes down to being led and being given the opportunity and being told this is not beyond you, isn't it? And that's what you've always done in the 16 as well, is just lay it out there. We're going to do this. We're going to be super at this. And then that self-belief kind of takes you along the crest of a wave, if you like.
I think it is that self-belief. I mean, Bernard Rose is a very special person, because I remember in chapel rehearsals, he would always pose questions, and he would never ridicule us if we made the most banal answer to that. And I always remember that, and I thought, that's great. I mean, he thought, what a stupid answer that was. He would never make us look stupid, but he would always put, he would make demands of us. There's no there's no bones about that. And but it is that ability to sort of be just working your way things, making mistakes, experimenting, and that's what university is all about.
Do you think it was a natural step then, and a progression for you to go to Westminster Abbey and join the choir there? That must have been quite a wrench to leave Oxford.
Oh, it was, but and again, in those days, there were numerous jobs I could have done. I mean, this was the beauty of those days. Nobody came out of university knowing what the heck they wanted to do. I had a job I could have been a tea-boy for Southern Television. I had a place at a Hochschule for Art and Music in Canberra, all sorts of things. Research assistant at the British Museum, had that. No way was I going to be stuck over a table looking at artefacts. And suddenly, Bernard Rose has a phone call from Douglas Guest at Westminster Abbey saying, I've got a couple of tenor vacancies, anybody you've got? So I go down and have my audition, and lo and behold, I get it. So Westminster Abbey, living in London, well, I mean, there's no argument.
A whole new world.
Yeah.